It's in the syllabus. Read the syllabus. Welcome back. This is actually our first real video specifically for English 3524, where I am going to walk you through the changes made to our syllabus so that you know what's being expected of you over the next few weeks. Like I said in my last video, the idea is to try and tear things down to its most basic elements, because we've lost a week of instruction, because things have gotten so confusing, there's so much upheaval. I can't expect the same kind of complexity that we had with our schedule. So a lot of things have changed. I want to walk you through it. You can see my screen here. I want to show you the syllabus. Some of the things, as you can see, there's still some revisions in progress, but ultimately this is what we're going to be looking at. I'm going to show you some of the things that have changed, some of the things that have gone away, some of the new stuff that you can expect to find, and hopefully this is going to be as painless as possible. I'll say it now and I'll say it again at the end of the video. If you do have any questions or concerns about any of the changes taking place, just let me know. Send me an email. Head over to Canvas to send me a message, and I will try and get back to you ASAP. But for now, I'm going to walk you through the syllabus. You can have it open, or you can just follow along in the video here. But obviously, everything, I'm trying to make it as clear as possible what has changed by highlighting it in yellow. I haven't removed things from the syllabus so much as I have added clauses that reflect some of the changes. So as you can see here, obviously no in-person office hours will be conducted after spring break, but I will be available. Anything that you need to talk about your paper, your assignments, confusion about the lecture notes, feel free to email me, but I'm also available for appointment-based voice and or video chat for student conferences. We'll figure out what works best for you. We have the chat feature on Canvas, which works pretty well, but we can also use GChat, Zoom, whatever you happen to have on your desktop. We'll figure it out. But I'm going to scroll us down here so we can take a look at some of these changes that have been made. Obviously, the course description is still the same, but the first thing that we want to pay attention to is I have actually added a new category of classes. Now, of assignments. I do not think multiple choice reading quizzes are ideal pedagogically, but it is something there that can get you some points. I've wound up having to cut a lot of assignments, and so your final point pool that your grade is going to be based on has been reduced. So I wanted to add something in there that's an easy way to make sure that you're still building up points. We're going to have weekly Canvas reading quizzes. I'll explain those here in a moment. Let's talk about each of the individual assignment categories that we were using beforehand. Number one, original discussion questions. They're gone. They are canceled following spring break. You will, of course, receive credit for the ODQs already submitted, but from here on out, you will not be submitting ODQs anymore. The logistics of getting the ODQs turned in, assessed, posted on the discussion boards, etc., etc., it's a little too complex, and there's too many people in the class to actually expect people to write them directly on the discussion board. So I'm just cutting that requirement. No more original discussion questions will be required from here on out. In regards to the discussion board posts, though, without those student written original discussion questions, what I'm planning on doing is actually, and remember in my last video I said we're really in pedagogy triage right now. And so to cut down on the manpower required to really create a lot of this material, I am actually going to be drawing from ODQs written from students in past semesters. Just last semester I taught this same class with the same readings list, so I have something to draw from there. I will be able to put those up on the discussion board starting very shortly this week. I'm going to be drawing those, get everything set up so that you can get started as soon as possible. Obviously, though, discussion board responses will have the same requirements. You're still expected to post 2 different response posts on the discussion boards, 350 to 500 words, utilizing multiple references to textual evidence. All of that is still in place, and of course I've left those directions here for you to review. The only difference with the discussion board is the source of what is actually spurning these discussion questions. I'll be drawing those from last semester and semesters past. Those will be up very shortly. Now, in terms of the weekly reading quizzes, these will be reading quizzes administered via Canvas that will consist of several multiple choice questions asking you to recall important details from the text regarding character, plot, setting, etc. But it will also cover lecture materials. Quizzes will be due at the end of each week regarding corresponding readings and lectures. So each week we've got like a different theme, a different set of readings. At the end of the week you'll be taking a quiz based on all of that material. Because we are doing this online, you're going to be working through a lot of material sort of on your own. The quiz is intended to help make sure that you're reading that closely, because we don't have the in-person practice workshops anymore, which we'll get to in a minute. We don't have in-class discussion, so there has to be some sort of mechanism in there to make sure that you're keeping up with the reading material. Quizzes will be 10 questions a piece, 20 points total for each quiz, and I'm not going to make quiz questions sort of esoteric or asinine in the way that I'm asking you to recall minute details that are difficult to remember. I'm instead asking you to recall major details that are important for our discussions. As you'll see on the quiz assignments themselves, the quizzes also do not have a time limit, not requiring a lockdown browser or anything like that. Take your time, pause, come back to it later. As long as you don't hit the submit button, it will save your progress and use the materials that are available to you. I already mentioned in-class practice workshops. Obviously, we can't do those anymore. You will receive credit for the workshops that we've already conducted. And for those of you who missed practice workshops, the expectation for making those up still remains the same. So continue working on those if I've given you that go-ahead. But otherwise, moving forward, I'm not even creating an equivalent assignment here. We're just getting rid of that altogether, so that we don't have to worry about it anymore. Again, the idea is to make it as streamlined as possible, giving you as little to worry about as possible so we can make it. This is the big one. We have our textual analysis essay that was coming up in a few weeks. We talked about it in detail in class. The assignment sheet talked about grading. All of that stands. The major difference, though, is that this essay is now considered the ultimate project for the spring 2020 semester. Students, you can elect to turn it in early in the 3rd week following spring break. I'll show you the schedule here in a moment. Or you can wait and turn it in during finals week on May 12th. If you choose to turn it in during finals week, that's going to give you more material to work with. I'm asking you to choose one primary text read in class, and you can do it either one that's comprised primarily of prose, or you can do a visual analysis essay based on the latter half materials once we get to picture books and comics and so on. Everything else remains the same about the assignment. It's just I want to give students opportunity to turn in things a little bit more flexibly. This is a big project. I want people to have, who have already started on it, people who have already put forth a great deal of effort into it, or people, maybe you haven't started on it yet and you just want to get it out of the way. You have the opportunity to turn that in early, but if things are crazy right now, feel free, no judgment. Put it off until the end of the semester and turn it in then. Either way, it's going to reduce the workload on you. It's going to reduce the workload on me. It's going to split my grading in half, which is nice. Again, just to make it easier on everybody. And so that means that this visual analysis project is canceled. So again, keep in mind all of the things that have changed. Textual analysis project is now expanded into just an analysis essay. You can turn it in the middle of the semester or at the end of the semester, your choice. You will have your discussion boards due weekly based on questions drawn from past semesters, and you will have a weekly reading quiz. In terms of course policies here, anything related to attendance or in-classroom expectations are no longer relevant after spring break, but any other policies regarding student expectations do remain in place. Now, I have a lot of scary language in here about getting things in on time, et cetera, but because of the circumstances, I am going to take away the part of the assignments that make them disappear when the due date happens. That way I can be a little bit more flexible with those due dates. I still want you to let me know if you're not going to be able to get things in on time, just so I can keep in touch. It's really easy in an online course for people to fall behind. So while the due dates schedule are there to make sure that we're keeping on pace and that we're getting everything in, I know the danger of getting distracted, getting behind, losing focus. So just keep in touch if something comes up, if you're struggling with something, if you're having issues focusing. We're going to work through all that. So we'll scroll down past all the rest of this. A lot of it hasn't changed. A lot of the policies in terms of the services. Obviously, a lot of these phone numbers are still available, websites, emails. Please contact any of them if you are having a challenging experience with our new distance learning scenario. If you're having challenges completing your courses because of disabilities, because of other types of experiences that would negatively impact your grade. And again, I'm going to reiterate this. I did talk about this on the first day of class. It's not limited to just physical disabilities. It also includes ADHD, chronic or temporary medical conditions, deaf or hard of hearing, learning disabilities, mental health struggles, or vision impairment. All of these things can be severely detrimental to online learning. So reach out if these things are causing a problem. Maybe they weren't causing a problem in person, but now that you're expected to be looking at a laptop screen for the foreseeable future, it might become more of a detriment. So please reach out to let me know what's going on, but also contacting the SSD office so that they know what's going on as well. The Writing Center is still open just for online appointments. Same thing goes for counseling services. Basically, any in-person things have been moved, but you can still contact these numbers to try and reach out and get services that are still being provided to you. I'm going to scroll down here past. I left what was on our schedule beforehand on here, just for posterity's sake, I suppose. But down at the bottom, you can see after spring break, we've got a whole new type of schedule. The course is going to switch to a weekly asynchronous schedule. So that means that you have a list of goals to accomplish each week, and your goal is to accomplish them by the end of that week, each Friday at 11:59 p.m. Week 1, for instance, is all about Nancy Drew. The required reading, The Secret of the Old Clock, you've probably already done, but it might have been a while. You know, it's been 2 weeks of spring break by the time we get back into it. You may need to refresh yourself. We did not finish our Nancy Drew unit before we left for spring break. In fact, the second day of lecturing, I canceled because there was only a handful of people actually in the classroom the Friday before spring break. So I am going to reproduce notes online so that we can refresh ourselves about what was talked about in class that long ago, but also new material. So you'll be working through that. I'm going to show you what it looks like here in a moment. Supplementary, as always, is optional. You do have presumably a level of time on your hands now to read more, but the expectation is still the same. It's not required reading, but it is helpful to get further context, and I do quote from and draw from these sources in the lecture notes quite a bit, and they can be beneficial in your discussion boards and in your final project paper, as an example. One thing that we want to point out here is the assignment is not the Nancy Drew board. This first week coming back, the 23rd to the 27th, I feel like there's still like an adjustment period. The second week of spring break is for teachers to adjust. I think next week is going to be about students adjusting. So the Alice board was originally due yesterday, but obviously they got postponed because of the extended spring break. I know it's been a while since we read Alice, but that'll give you a little bit more time to get those discussion board posts done. And you can use that week we can use that week to catch up on Nancy Drew and that information before we move on to week 2. Week 2, we're going to read Hatchet. There's not as much secondary material available on Hatchet. I have something else I want to add to this list, actually, and this may change a little bit here in the near future. But as you can see, in order to give us that week of adjustment period to get used to the new normal, I have actually collapsed the discussion board for the discussion board and the quiz to include both Nancy Drew and Hatchet. Okay, so questions covering both weeks worth of material will be in there. So just be aware that it's a broader quiz, but ultimately, you know, it's going to be the same length. Then we'll move into picture books. As you can see, I'm able to show you my screen. So the visual aspect of learning how to read picture books and critically examining picture books is going to be okay for us. I'm still going to be able to provide you with visual stimulation in terms of dissecting picture books, looking at the images, how to actually read those images. It's a pretty interesting unit. It's too bad we won't have any hands-on experience with any picture books, but we'll try to do our best. And again, you can see here, week 3 is your optional early deadline for literary analysis essay. That would be due April 10th by 11:59 p.m. We also have a quiz on that week, and you can see because we have that extra assignment there for the analysis essay, there's only going to be one discussion board that covers all of picture books. So discussion board 4 will be due in week 4. Give me plenty of time to get that set up. In the quiz, you'll have 2 quizzes for picture books. Moving into week 5, we're talking about how to read comics. Now, you can see here there's a little bit of ambiguity or required reading, a selection from the comic sampling folder. I was originally going to sort of give you carte blanche to read a handful of things from a folder of a lot of collected things, but that was only going to work when we could have our in-person practice workshop. So that's going to change. You're going to get some specific readings. I'll give you a good samplings from throughout the 20th century. A short writing, some for children, some for not. Superheroes, horror comics, children's comics, adult slice of life stuff, all falling within the same kind of parameters we set out. We're going to learn how to read comics, and again, I'll be able to use those visuals to help you along. And then week 6, we're going to actually talk about bone. Once we have a foundational sort of understanding of where comics exist in sort of lineage of children's publishing and children's culture, we'll look at something specific with the first volume of Bone, Out from Boneville. And as you can see, we also have the discussion board for both weeks of comics and a quiz focused entirely on bone. You can see here that week 7 is a short week. I don't know. I'm guessing that exam week is going to have the same schedule, with reading day taking place on the 7th and exams starting on the 8th. The 4th and 6th are Monday and Wednesday. But ultimately that last week, we're just going to have opportunities for workshopping our papers. I'll figure out what that looks like in the meantime. But a short week means not a lot of new content. Your ultimate progress towards your paper needs to be finished by Monday, May the 12th. I'm going to give you until 5 p.m. instead of 11:59 just because I got to start grading it at some point. But again, these due dates are pretty flexible if something else is going on. If you have another exam that's conflicting with this, just let me know. Of course, if you turn in that essay at the early due date in week 3, then you'll be done. You'll be done on May 1st. So, of course, again, if you have any questions or concerns about the syllabus, please let me know. I've tried to make this into as straightforward a checklist as possible, just so you can start at the beginning of the week, and just go down the list one by one and work on it at your own pace. Down here is another checklist here. Of course, you can reach all of these things. I haven't put due dates. Don't worry about this down here. It's going to get cleaned up. It's a little messy right now because they're still in progress. But again, if you have any questions, let me know. In my next video, I'm going to explain to you how modules work and how they're actually going to help you work through this material in a little bit more of a organized, controlled fashion. But I'm going to break this video up right now just because we don't want the videos to get too long. I know attention spans are probably starting to wane. But we'll see you in the next video.